struck him out.
2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Welcome up, Chris Taylor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another live DodgerHeads postgame show. My name is Matthew Moreno, and it's Friday, so that means joining me is Anthony Witrado. We want to thank all of you who are tuning in live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I've seen some of the comments in here, and there's a lot of frustration, and obviously on social media during the game, fans are upset, so we appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to try to talk through things as best as we can. Anthony, the last time you and I were together, we sort of looked ahead a little bit to this series, and it got off to the painful start that you were hoping to sort of avoid.
Yeah, this was an ugly one. Not entirely surprising that they kind of, fell a little silent. They were a little flat, aside from Ohtani. Faced a good pitcher on the other side. They kind of don't have all the firepower right now to deal with somebody like that. You really have to hope somebody aside from Ohtani kind of goes off on a night like this, whether that be Teoscar or somebody at the bottom of the order. Didn't get that. A couple of really stupid, boneheaded type of plays throughout this game. Really cost them. It sapped any momentum that they might have been trying to stir up. So yeah, pretty forgettable loss just in terms of like nothing good, comes from it aside from, Ohtani seems like he's swinging the bat pretty consistently still. But yeah, just, you hope they come back and can capture these next two.
Yeah. We have our first super chat of the night already. So thank you for this. 300G JW says another ace bamboozling us. He's of course referencing Framber Valdez. I'd rather play with 8 players than watch Cavan Biggio's futility. He is the anti-Freeman. Horrific base running by Vargas with the no hustle, which was something you mentioned, Anthony. The Cavan Biggio thing was interesting because they showed why am I blanking? Craig Biggio during the stream, can we call it a broadcast? Is it more of a stream technically since it was Apple TV? But during the game, they showed his father there. So that was interesting. Biggio he went into the night with a little bit of success against Valdez in his career. I think it was only 4 at bats, but he had 2 or 3 hits. One of them was a home run. Obviously, that didn't carry through to tonight. And 300G JW mentions that he's the anti-Freeman. I think we also need to take a second and recognize, Freddie Freeman is away from the team right now. He had to come back to LA because his family is dealing with, probably you could classify a little bit of a medical emergency, definitely a medical situation. Hopefully everything goes well with his son, Maximus, and he makes a quick recovery. I know Freeman's wife has been posting on social media some different updates throughout the week, and it seems like it's unfortunately a pretty serious situation. All right. If you guys have been with us, you know that for these post-game shows, we usually spend a decent amount of time kind of diving into the ebbs and flows, the good and bad of a game. Not tonight. We're gonna keep it brief, and then no need to spend a bunch of time talking about the Astros. So we are going to discuss the game a little bit. Excuse me. Then we'll get into the Dodgers officially trading James Paxton, where things stand with Garrett Crochet and his demands, what that may have done to his market. And we're going to discuss also some interest that the Dodgers may or may not have in Mason Miller and Tanner Scott. Of course, we'll leave some time at the end for questions. We did have our first super chat already, but if you want us to do a different topic or address a specific question, super chat is the way to go. If you're with us on YouTube, please hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, so definitely rate, review us, subscribe there. One last thing, sort of order of business before we really get into everything. I want to remind everybody about our sponsor, So Rare, and their July chase that they're doing. The month is almost ending, but they're still giving away up to $100,000 in cash prizes for July. That includes $1,000 to the winner of the free-to-play common competition. So definitely be sure to sign up for a free account. The link is in the description of this. All right, so we're going to keep it brief, but we do need to touch on the game. This is a post-game show after all. Gavin Stone got knocked around a little bit, 4 runs, 9 hits. 2 of those were home runs. Didn't get much swing and miss, which I'll leave open to interpretation of the chat as to why that may or may not have been the case. But hey,
You had to go there, Matt.
just throwing that out there. Stone did manage to give the Dodgers 6 big innings, so at least he alleviated some of the burden on the bullpen.
That was pretty. I'll say this: I think that was the bright spot of this game, that he was able to go back out there and get them 6 innings. I did not think he was going to, and so that was a pleasant surprise. That could end up being big for the rest of the series. That might be a big deal. So, he looked like he could have easily been done after 4, and to go out there and give them 2 more, I thought was important. And there's something to be said about a guy who doesn't have it. He's giving up runs. He's giving up hard hit balls, home runs, but grinds it out and gets the Dodgers kind of what they need, at least so they can sort of save the bullpen a bit. That was important. Like I said, could end up helping them win the next 2, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, and looking ahead really quick, the Dodgers have nothing but rookies starting in this series. So up next is Robleski on Saturday, and then River Ryan gets the ball on Sunday. So just kind of the way both the state of the Dodgers rotation and injuries, which obviously we've discussed at length, and just the way the schedule sort of lined up. But back to this one tonight, Dodgers trailed early from the 2nd inning on. They had multiple opportunities throughout the night. Their golden one in the 6th inning when a single from Gavin Lux, walk by Shohei Ohtani and Will Smith loaded the bases. But Teoscar Hernandez followed that by striking out. Andy Pages then flied out. And just like that, Dodgers are still being shut out. Then in the 7th inning, singles by Miguel Vargas and Kike Hernandez put runners at the corners with nobody out. But the Dodgers again didn't score, and this time it was basically, I don't want to put it lightly, but almost a comedy of errors, essentially. Gavin Lux appears to have a 2-out infield single. Kike overrun second base. My assumption is he thought the play was going to be at first, and so he was rounding, anticipating the ball to be thrown to first base. Bregman didn't end up having a play, but because Kike came off the bag, tagged him for the 3rd out. And that happened. All of that happened somehow before Miguel Vargas managed to score from 3rd base. And the home plate umpire did initially rule that the Dodgers did get the run. So they were at least on the board. Astros ended up challenging. Sure enough, replay shows Vargas was sort of jogging down the line. Anthony, I mean, those types of mistakes that sort of summed up the night. In the past, it's been a while since we've seen Dave Roberts maybe take action on something like that with Vargas specifically. Are you a little surprised that maybe he didn't bench him?
Yeah, a little bit. I thought it would have sent a message. Look, Vargas is not in a position to have plays like that on his resume right now. He's a guy who needs to be busting it every single play, every day. So to see that was pretty disappointing, I'll be honest, especially considering the where that game was at that time. I would not have minded one bit if Dave, did something there with Vargas, sat him down or maybe they cut to the dugout and they're having a sit down discussion about it, something like that. I know they have to go back onto the field, but that's a pretty unacceptable play, especially at the big league level, especially considering what the Dodgers are hoping to be going forward. And like I said, the position that game was in at that point. He's a guy who should be fighting every day to stay on this roster and to stay in the big leagues. That kind of play is disappointing. And I think it also sort of just showed the lack of urgency, not only him, but just the team seemed to play with tonight. And it happens. It's a long season. There's 160 games. I get it. And I've covered a lot of baseball and to know, you just kind of have flat games, but a lack of hustle and a lack of effort should not be the reason why you come out and, maybe the offense doesn't click or something like that. But that should not be the reason why. And they let it be part of the reason why tonight. And Vargas, I hope, either understands that immediately after it happened or gets sat down and has a talking to by probably more effective coming from a teammate.
Yeah. And I think, a couple of things I am seeing people saying, GI. They were shorthanded today, so it's somewhat understandable. I think, and GI, I don't think is addressing the Vargas situation specifically. I think that's more just the Dodgers losing. That fine, there is some merit to that, but to your point, like you're already without Mookie Betts, you're without Max Muncy. The starting pitching, it obviously is what it is. Freddie Freeman then ends up needing to leave shortly before the game. So yes, to your point, if you're Miguel Vargas, there's no excuse for that type of play anyway. Definitely not with everything kind of stacked against the Dodgers, sort of the way it was. And I don't want to turn this into like a fire Dave Roberts. I am seeing that in the chat already, and we've dealt with it for several years. But it does, for me, this type of thing sort of falls under the umbrella of Dave's mentality of, hey, it's a long season. 1 loss is okay, 2 losses okay, which there is some value to that, but I think there also is value to a manager kind of, like you said, maybe letting into his guys a little bit with, certain things just aren't acceptable.
Yeah. And there are ways to do that. And look, these guys are there's a lot of veterans on this team. There's a lot. And there's a decent share of young guys like Vargas and Pages. This isn't the movies or high school where a manager can bust in and grab a guy by the collar and just start screaming and cussing and spit coming out of his mouth. That doesn't work like that. If a guy first of all, the season's too long. And if a manager did do that, especially with the team that's 21 or, something like that, 20 games over 500, the lead that they have in their division and the injuries that they've been dealing with all season, if a manager was to go in and do that, even for Vargas, who probably deserves to have a talking to, I'll tell you what, that's not going to sit well in the clubhouse. If you want to lose the clubhouse quickly as a manager, that's a good way to do it. I've covered enough, not to bring this up again, but I've covered enough baseball and sat down off the record, just kind of during BP or whatever with players. And they've talked to me about, yes, such and such manager or such and such coach did this yesterday after the game. Guys are pissed. I covered the Brewers when Ken Maka was there, and also a former A's manager. And he tended to do that a little too often for guys' taste. And he had lost that clubhouse before the All-Star break. He ended up getting fired, I think, after like 1 season. And he was a really respected baseball person. But you cannot do that with grown men that often and expect it to have a real effect. And so, for the people who want Dave Roberts to come out guns blazing, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. And, I imagine at your job, and you're a grown person, and, you make a mistake, and probably one that you shouldn't have made. And all right, I got to correct that next time. But your manager still comes out and shreds you in front of everybody. How are you going to feel about that?
Yeah, probably not very good. Let's close the book on tonight's game, maybe with a little bit of positivity. I know it's not popular, but the Apple TV Plus stream, I thought for the most part was fine. Any strong feelings one way or the other towards tonight's stream, specifically, not necessarily MLB putting games on Apple as a whole, because I know that's generally not very popular amongst fans.
Yeah. I don't mind it. I think they run a fairly decent broadcast for the most part. I do like a lot of the probabilities and then some of the numbers that they throw up. That's kind of entertaining to see. Overall, I don't have a real problem with what they've done so far. I know people don't like that they have to get Apple TV to see the game. I understand that. I think that if you have, let's say, if you pay for the package in Southern California to watch that game on cable, you should be able to do that. Or if you pay for MLB TV, you should still be able to watch that game there. I don't like that it's exclusive in that way, because they charge so much for the product, to be watched on those other platforms. But baseball's going to make that money. It's Rob Manfred's mantra, essentially.
Yeah, Adam says
I will say that. Okay, I was just going to reference this.
Yeah,
that game comes in incredibly sharp on my TVs. It's an Apple thing, so that's a big plus. I really do like the quality of the picture on Apple.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. Aaron Vaughn is asking, does Apple TV have any other good shows? My wife and I recently did just finish Presumed Innocent this week.
I haven't started. Is it good?
We enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was really good. I think you'll like it. So
There's
I like that, and I've watched a couple other things on there too.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's like $4.99 or $5.99 a month. I pay for it. I had it free for like a while through like my phone plan and stuff like that, and they cut that off. And I've probably been paying for it for like the last year or so. I think it's worth it. It's fine. They got some good stuff on there, and sometimes they'll have some really good movies too. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move things along. If you guys have some Apple TV questions, we'll answer some of those at the end tonight. If you missed it, so we knew this was coming, but if you missed it, James Paxton was officially traded this morning, and he's back with the Red Sox, where he spent the past 2 seasons. He didn't pitch for them in 2022 because he was recovering from Tommy John surgery and suffered a couple setbacks during that rehab process. Made, I believe, 13 starts or 19 starts for them last year. Dealt with some injuries as well, but the Red Sox were one of the teams that needed pitching, and they wanted to bring Big Maple back to the organization. The Dodgers received Moises Bolivar, who is in the Dominican Summer League. Anthony, considering the need that there is for pitching, I know we are just no slight to James Paxton. He's not an ace that are potentially available at the deadline, but are you surprised that the Dodgers got a prospect or a player, a minor leaguer who is kind of so far away?
No, I didn't think that they were going to get anything, much more than that. I think we talked about it on Tuesday, and I said, look, if they get a lottery ticket who maybe hits one day, then that's cool. I think that sure there's a demand for pitching, but like it's still James Paxton, and even though the Red Sox were in on him early, and it was pretty obvious that they wanted him, they weren't going to give up the farm for this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so just to get somebody back at all that maybe worth something later on down the future, is totally fine with me. He got DFA'd for a reason. He wasn't going to be back in this rotation. So to get something back is fine.
Yeah, part of me wonders, though, if maybe things would have unfolded differently had they not DFA'd him. If they didn't they needed to do something, right? Because River Ryan was coming up. They had a roster crunch and all that. But if James Paxton made his last start for the Dodgers on Sunday the way he did, and then they knew, okay, we're going to trade him this week. If he's not DFA'd, you have a little bit more leverage. You maybe end up getting something a little bit more for him. Just food for thought. A little background on Bolivar. He's 17 years old, shortstop prospect, which, as you mentioned, kind of a lottery ticket. But hey, that's also been a position that's been a revolving door for the Dodgers. So maybe he ends up being the one that sort of plugs it several years from now.
Yeah, you never know. Some of those guys have hit in the past, and so again, it was James Paxton. Every time he pitched recently, this chat blew up with not great comments, right? So it's not like he was going to be of any use to them, really. And so to get anything back at all is fine with me. And lottery ticket, we'll see.
Yeah. Sticking with pitching, Garrett Crochet has made some some demands about his future if he's going to be traded.
Let's talk about this one.
The big one. The two are, one, he wants to remain a starter for the rest of the season, not go into the bullpen, which, okay, fine. I think, maybe he's not, this is his first year starting though. So I would argue like there should be comfortability pitching out of the bullpen. The bigger thing is that if a team trades for Crochet and wants him to pitch in the playoffs, he wants to have a contract extension in place by then. Anthony, I'm going to turn the floor over to you, and you can run with that whichever direction you go, and I'll monitor the chat.
I'm very pro player. I'm very player empowerment movement in all these sports. This is absolute garbage. And if this is the kind of guy, we've talked before about the Dodgers being big on character when they make certain moves, and every once in a while they'll kind of stray from that. Trey Turner, Manny Machado, there's certain couple guys that come to mind. And those guys were not brought back. Right. And so I think with something like this, this is really going to give a team in a front office like the Dodgers hesitation, I would think, based on their history and some of the things that they've said in the past. If you are one, still under team control, and you're making a demand like that and saying, not only saying like, if I go to a team, I'd like to be extended. You're going as far as saying, I won't pitch in the playoffs if your team makes it and you don't extend me. That is BS, man. And I'll say this, it's a huge red flag. And you know what? I am going to say that he may very well cost himself money in free agency whenever he does get there, because teams don't forget stuff like that. And it's a question now of like, okay, let's say we bring you in for an interview during the winter meetings when you are a free agent. Look, you've said this in the past. How do we know that you won't quit because you don't like something else later on down the road? How do we know that you're going to stick with us through thick and thin and not complain about your contract and, hold out or demand a trade or something like that, right? Like, this stuff sticks to you. And whether it was his representation who leaked that, or he came out and said it, or another team said, hey, he's telling us this, whatever the case may be, this came from somebody in his camp or him. And for that to be the situation, it makes me think like, you know what, how can you count on this guy? It's not a guy I would want on my team. That's as selfish as you can get.
Yeah, I can see, like, if he feels that he's putting himself at risk, like, fine, and you feel that way, fine. What I'm surprised by is, and maybe it wasn't necessarily his doing, is that this became public. So my hope would be that maybe Crochet tried to handle that behind closed doors, and still, though, my preference would have been like, hey, if you get traded, then maybe talk to the team that you're joining at that point, like, not necessarily now. Like, it doesn't seem like anything has sort of, and of course this stuff could be happening behind the scenes and we're not necessarily hearing about it just yet, but
it may be another team that leaked it, but they would not just make that up. Like, they must have been told that and said, you know what, I'm going to tell our reporter this, or I'm going to tell somebody this. One, it drives his price down. So if you are a team who's looking at him and you were told that and you leak it, it's going to drive the price down. And so that may help you in the long run. Or his camp is dumb enough to say that publicly.
Yeah. And I think what I struggle with is, if Crochet is worried about his health, I could fine. Maybe you don't want to go to a bullpen. You're a little worried that a team might use you, twice in 3 days, and your body, like, you can't do that right now. Like, that's fair. I think with the Dodgers specifically, they would take care of him. Like, I always assumed before this came out that if they were to trade for Crochet, they would probably give him some sort of breather during the season, or if they put him in the bullpen, it would definitely be using him cautiously. So what I struggle with is, if you're worried about your health, then why are you then insisting on, like, not taking a break and still making every turn to finish out the season? Because your innings, you already have set a new career high. It's double the amount that you've ever pitched. This is your first full season as a starter. You're coming back from Tommy John. Like, there's a lot of things stacked against you. Like, in my opinion, taking a even if it's phantom, like, 2 weeks, 15 days on the injured list wouldn't be the worst idea. So yeah, I mean, just an interesting little wrinkle. What impact?
I think the fact, though, that he's saying, I won't pitch. Look, you're being paid to pitch this season no matter how long it lasts.
Sure.
And you're telling the team, because it's going to be a contender who would trade for him, that if you make the playoffs and you don't extend me, I won't pitch in the playoffs. I mean, that's, it's one thing to go out and say, like, if he were to say something like, if I get traded, I want to have extension talks. Like, I want to be extended. And that's okay. That's for that part of it's fine. I don't, like, whatever, the guy wants to make his money. I get it. But to say I'm not going to pitch, that's not okay. And imagine that you're the team that trades for him and you bring that guy into your clubhouse. It's later in the season now. A bunch of guys have already been together since spring training, and you're bringing that guy in. How are they going to look at him knowing that now? Like, what's that mood there? Like, let's say this extension talk drags on into September and we're getting closer to the playoffs. How does that rotation, how does that pitching coach, how does that pitching staff look at Crochet as the clock ticks down to October and he's not extended yet.
Yeah,
And is he gonna make noise about it once he gets to that team?
yeah, and I think the other factor too is then like if you're a front office that does that, gives in to his demand of the extension, then I think you need to work like what precedent does that then set for, let's in this case I'll say Andrew Friedman because we're hypothetically discussing the Dodgers. What kind of precedent does it set for him with other players moving forward, other kind of negotiations? Yeah, I mean it could be a slippery slope. Do you I mean, I feel like I know the answer, but given Crochet's demands are out there, and he was asked about them today, and he basically sort of sidestepped, like he just said I think he's focused on pitching or something. But
Yeah, bad answer.
do you feel that this stuff coming out like significantly impacts the likelihood of him getting traded or not traded at the deadline?
I think so. I think teams are now. It's going to be one of the first questions they ask the White Sox, and if it gets far enough down the road, then that team's going to ask his agent, how real is this thing? Is this guy going to quit on us if we don't extend him right away? Because that's a small window to extend somebody. You have August and September, and for timing's sake, let's say you want to get it done before like mid-September, doesn't leave you a lot of time. And it's a guy you don't really know. He's asking a team that's unfamiliar with him for the most part to extend him. And that's just, it's a bad look. His answer was bad today. I think it's going to drive some teams away. And if anything, it's going to drive his price down. This hurts the White Sox.
Yeah. Last thing on Crochet, we have a super chat from Laura. So thank you for this, Laura. She says, can Crochet make demands regarding a trade? How does that work? Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Like the Dodgers traded for Glasnow and extended him right away. And I think that was pretty much part of the trade with the Rays. I think the Dodgers were probably open to that. Like it was a mutual thing.
Yeah. And part of the package that the Rays got was partly based on Glasnow being willing to have an extension with the Dodgers. Because I think he had two seasons.
I believe so. Yeah. This one and I think one more.
Yeah. And then if you give up what they were, what those trade talks were talking about, what was on the table there, you want the guy for more than 2 seasons. And so I think going into it, they knew we're going to want to extend this guy. And so for that part, it wasn't a problem. But for the guy to come out and say what Crochet said, that's a problem. And to answer Laura's question, yeah, a guy can go in and say, hey, I want to be traded. I don't want to play here anymore. But baseball is a unique situation where you get this team control part of your career. And when you're under it, it doesn't really matter what you say.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to sort of monitor what happens moving forward with Crochet. Let's move on to our next topic. Bullpen doesn't necessarily appear to be a primary focus, at least externally, for the Dodgers, but they continue to be connected to Mason Miller and Tanner Scott. Miller has gone. He went in complicated matters a little bit by fracturing his left pinky because he was upset. The cost for him was high anyway, and I don't know. Like there wasn't, I don't think, much belief or anticipation that the A's would trade him at this deadline. Marlins certainly appear open for business. Is there a Tanner Scott trade, do you think, in the Dodgers' future?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I think Mason Miller, he was on my wish list, but it was always a long shot because from everything that I had been told and what was out there from some of the national reporters was that the A's were asking for everything for him. And so, who knows what the A's are doing, but, Tanner Scott would be a very nice option there. He's a good alternative reliever there. I think that the bullpen's not a huge point of concern at this point, but kind of like starting pitching, like getting this late into the season. And when you have playoff aspirations, you can never have enough leverage relievers. And I think bringing in somebody like him bolsters that, knocks out some of the guys who maybe Roberts doesn't trust right now. And just, it adds deep depth to that pen, and it helps rotation. When you have a dominant type of bullpen, it really can add, it can add some umph to the rotation as well. So I would be for it.
Yeah, and this is where I think one of the concerns with Tanner Scott is his walk rate. He's struggling with that a little bit this season, but he is certainly a talented reliever, an elite relief pitcher who would, like you said, would boost the Dodgers bullpen group. And we've seen it in the playoffs. You get into those games, and if a starter is struggling, he's having a much shorter start. Like even Dave Roberts, who has been criticized for maybe leaving pitchers in too long or taking them out too early, like we've seen him be aggressive and say, no, like I'm going to my bullpen now. And so to your point, the more kind of trust you have in guys, 1 through 7 in that group, 1 through 8, whatever it ends up being, certainly helps. Do you see Mason Miller getting traded at all, even removing the fact that he has the fractured left? It is on his non-throwing hand, so that does, I guess, help his cause. But that injury aside, did you anticipate him getting traded?
I don't think so. And I think the A's probably don't want to trade him. They may see him as a marquee name going forward, and they kind of need that. They're not in a great situation with their fan base, so they sort of need guys that the fans like. And I think that's probably why they were really asking for so much for him. He's got team control left, and his value isn't going to go anywhere. I don't think so. I think that they're probably fine holding him back and maybe making that play later on down the road with him.
Yeah, I agree, and I think they need to have somebody to lure all the fans to their AAA stadium that they're going to be playing in, and then if and when they make it to Vegas, maybe in a couple of years, Mason Miller is still on their team.
He'll be gone by the time they get to Vegas.
Real quick with Tanner Scott, then, do you feel, considering what has happened on the starting pitching front, Zach Eflin was traded to the Orioles, which maybe takes them out of the Crochet and Scuball market. Just, I think they still have the prospects if they choose to go down that route. But considering the uncertainty with Crochet and the uncertainty with Scuball, if he's truly available, is there a scenario, like how likely would you say that maybe Andrew Friedman and the Dodgers potentially pivot to, okay, we're not necessarily going to go after an elite starting pitcher because there aren't very many of them available, basically, and then Crochet went through the wrench and everything.
Yeah, he kind of took himself off the market.
And so now we're going to focus on maybe a dominant reliever like Tanner Scott. Is that how likely would you say that possibility is?
I have always been in the camp for this team that they go and bolster even bullpens that have been really good, at least in run prevention numbers. Look, we've seen the Giants do it twice. We've seen the Royals do it. We've seen the Rays get to the World Series, and all of those teams were sort of built on a starting pitcher, get us through 5 innings and keep it competitive, and then we are going to shut down the other team for 4 innings. And they've done that with just absolutely dominant relievers. And that's why playoff baseball is such a different beast than the regular season. The roster construction there is very different. You win differently in October than you win during the regular season. And that's one of the ways, is that you just lean on that bullpen. If you're good, if they're elite, you lean on those relievers, especially. And that's a deal that you make when you may be short of starting pitching, or you don't trust your starting pitching to get through 3 times through the order, that kind of stuff. And so we've seen, those teams just ride their relievers into playoff success. The Dodgers are a better team than I think any of those teams were. Mm-hmm. And so if they can bolster that bullpen with some of the starting pitching that we believe they should have, health-wise and all of that stuff come October, I think that's a money play for them. It's cool to go out and get the Max Scherzer or whoever, but that guy still can only get the ball, once every 5-6 days or whatever. And not to say that they're not valuable. Obviously, starting pitching is incredibly valuable. But I think in October, elite leverage relief pitching is equally as valuable.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, it's shaping up for me to be interesting from the standpoint of there aren't a lot of elite starting pitchers available. Do the Dodgers just maybe end up pivoting and going after a strong relief pitcher, which, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I wasn't necessarily anticipating. I thought they would just rely on the group and then maybe get somebody kind of a not lower level, but a lesser caliber, not an all-star shutdown relief pitcher, but some Chris Martin. We've seen them do it in the past.
Sure.
But it wouldn't shock me now if there's a change in strategy, but we'll see.
I think if they can go get a guy or two like that, it really does help. I mean, it really does. It might be disappointing that they didn't get Scuba or they didn't get Crochet or whoever, the blockbuster name is, Luis Roberts or Rosarena got traded to Seattle. But I think that, we've talked about it. This team needs to get better on the fringes. They need to get better at the bottom of the order, and maybe that's an outfielder. Or, a Rosarena was a guy we were thinking. It'd be nice to get another frontline level starter. Like you said, there's not many of those, and Crochet may have just taken his name off of the table for the Dodgers. And so I think, looking for the bullpen is something that is not a small move. It might cost you less, and it might not be as sexy, but that's if the guy is legit and he performs, that's not a small move.
Yeah, it could end up being an under the radar thing that ultimately pays off in October more so than anybody might have anticipated, myself included. All right. Our next topic, final one for tonight, is Walker Buehler. He started his rehab assignment with Oklahoma City. Wasn't pretty. 4 runs, 4 innings, walked 2 batters, only 3 strikeouts. Dave Roberts said the hope was that Buehler would go 5 innings tonight. Anthony, is there anything to really make out of his first start in the PCL? I mean, the Pacific Coast League is a hitters. It's for hitters anyway. It's a launch pad. First one for Buehler. There have been a lot of positive reports leading up to this, his bullpen sessions, things like that, physically, mentally doing well. What would you take from tonight, if anything?
Yeah, look, if Glasnow, if they would have sent like Glasnow out on a rehab start and he got cooked, I wouldn't really have a concern. But I think given that Buehler's coming back from injury, a major injury, and he's not had any success this season for the most part, I think it does matter that he's not able to get guys out in a rehab assignment. We don't have anything. We don't really have anything to lean on in terms of well, he was good earlier this season. This might not really matter that much. He was struggling with a lot of things. I know Scott's big on bringing a lot of this stuff up with Buehler, but he was struggling before. Obviously with the Dodgers, and the fact that it doesn't seem like he's been able to figure it out yet. Yeah, that's concerning, because I think some of the hope is that if we can't make a big blockbuster type trade for a starting pitcher, maybe a guy like Walker Buehler comes back and he, starts to resemble the guy that was a Cy Young candidate. He looks a long way from that right now, though. So it is a concern. I think it is.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I thought the same thing though about Bobby Miller, and then Dave Roberts said, dug into his start with the pitching coaches, and it was actually better than it appeared on the surface, just kind of looking at box scores and stuff like that, watching some clips.
Yeah.
It could have been Dave speak.
What are you going to say? I mean, they also, that particular situation, like it may all be true. Let me first say that it may all be true. But that's a guy whose psyche they're also trying to protect.
Yeah.
And Bobby Miller has talked before about the mental part of the game and how tough it's been for him when he has struggled. Coming out and saying that publicly, that may be a strategic play from the Dodgers to say like, hey man, maybe the results haven't been there, fully, but we think you're still really good. And we see you as part of this team, and hoping that gets back to Miller, which obviously it would, and that he has some confidence, and so whether it's true or not, I'm sure there was something else behind that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get to some questions. And the first one we're going to do is a super chat from Rod. Rod, I appreciate your patience on letting us get to this. He wants to know, should the Dodgers go after Blake Snell if the Giants end up selling? And there was a report that he has a player. It's 2 years, but he has a player option after this year. It's like 30 something million.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes. Yeah, I would kick the tires there and see. He's looked better, and he didn't have a spring training. So a lot of this, maybe, some of these starts were maybe his spring training, and maybe he, catches a groove in September and rides it into October. He's a guy who's got experience in October. I like that. Yeah, I would absolutely explore that.
Okay. All right. So that's it for super chats. I see, Laura, I saw you commenting saying, see super chat. If it was yours, we answered it. If there's another one, then let me know, because I'm not seeing it for us here. But as a reminder, just start your question with the word question in all caps. Makes it a little bit easier for Anthony and I as those are coming in. Anthony, off topic for you. Olympics, the opening ceremony was today. Are you a big Olympics guy? Is there maybe a couple events that you're into, or are you just kind of casual viewer?
Yeah, I like the Olympics. I do. I'm not glued to my TV, but like if there's a big swimming event, yeah, sure, I'll tune in. Or if there's a big figure skating storyline, I'll tune in. Obviously, I like men's and women's basketball. I love the sprints. That's my favorite part. The sprints are my favorite part. Yeah, I do like the Olympics. I'm not a big opening ceremony person, though. That doesn't do anything for me. I don't care about
Yeah.
seeing Lady Gaga perform and run around Paris. It doesn't do anything for me. So I totally skipped on, Hawaiian Kira. Men's volleyball is awesome. Beach volleyball is really fun to watch. That's super exciting. That's a good one. I like that. But yeah, I didn't watch a single second of the opening ceremonies. Won't watch any of the highlights. Let's get to the competition.
That's kind of how I felt. I tried watching a little bit of it, and I did feel like it got away from like the athletes that are competing
It's
in all
dumb.
these games, and it was like,
Yeah,
well, this is entertainment at this point. So
I don't
uh,
need to watch a bad concert.
yeah. All right, we have some questions now. The first one is back to back. Nate says, if the Dodgers take last year's approach and don't make any huge impact trades, do you think this season is doomed? I don't think it's as dire as last year, because last year, like, it was, hey, you guys really need to do a lot of things here. If things continue to go wrong for them, then yes, the season will be doomed. But I could see them saying, like, hey, Yamamoto actually is healthy. He's going to be back. Like, he's okay. Like last year, they didn't have Yoshinobu Yamamoto returning. Maybe Bobby Mueller gets Bobby Miller. I combined a bunch of names there. I apologize. Maybe Bobby Miller gets back on track. But do you think it'd be doomed if they don't make any significant impact?
No. This is still one of the better teams in baseball. You can say what you want about their record since whatever date, insert date here. They're still one of the better rosters in baseball. And they're going to get guys back. They're going to get Mookie back. I'm assuming they're going to get Yamamoto back. We'll see how Kershaw looks going forward. Yeah, I don't think they're doomed. I think they have a roster that can still compete. And again, baseball in October is much different than baseball, April through September. So no, I don't think if they don't make a blockbuster kind of deal that this takes them out of the running for a World Series title. They're still one of the favorites. They'd have to lose a bunch more guys aside from the guys who are already on the IL for me to say that.
Yeah, I think there'd be reason to be a little concerned, but I wouldn't look at it the same way I did. Like that trade deadline passed last year, and I thought, man, this team, like, what are they doing? Like, I was just like, okay, whatever happens the rest of this year is just going to happen. Whereas I think there'd be more reason for optimism with this group's team.
I thought last year was a little bit of a reality check because it didn't feel like that team had it.
No,
it didn't. And so, like, to not use prospect capital on a trade that might not have helped them do any better than they actually did. I think that was a sort of I feel like that was that sort of play from the front office to say, like, you know what, this might not be it right here. This might not be the one. Let's save up and let's unload in the wintertime, which they did. Like, look, if they don't do a lot during this trade deadline, I really don't want to hear it about how bad or how stupid the inactivity was. Sure, they could use some help. Absolutely. 29 other teams can as well. Every single one of them. The Phillies, the Yankees, the Orioles, everybody can.
Yeah.
What they did in the wintertime is part of the privilege of being a Dodger fan. You have winners like that, or you have certain trade deadlines where they do make the blockbuster type of deal where they go get Trey Turner and Max Scherzer in one swoop. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like this front office never does anything. Like, they don't just sit on their hands and wait. They are very aggressive. And if they happen to not be, look, because they don't go get Skubal or something like that, doesn't mean that they didn't try. Like, you have to be realistic and reasonable with some of these things. And if they only make moves on the margins this deadline, I think they will do something. But if it's just on the margins, I really don't want to hear the frustration about how, this front office does nothing. Look, they went and got Shohei Ohtani and Tyler Glasnow, the best hitter and probably the best pitcher on the market in the wintertime. They've done a lot. You know what I mean? And they went and found Teoscar Hernandez on a bargain.
Yeah, definitely. Destiny is asking if we check the Twitter feed for questions. If you're watching this through Twitter, if you comment the way you did with this question, yes, we will see it. We'll try to answer it. The Darkness wants to know what's going on with Will Smith. Is this a concern or just a run-of-the-mill slump? I think we've seen him go through these slumps for whatever reason. So it's just, I'm chalking it up to just kind of another one of those.
Yeah, look, and here's another sort of, here's a lesson to be learned. All your all-star catchers, this happens to. And it's going to happen to Will Smith as long as he's a catcher. It is a grueling position. And when you play, 90% of the games over the course of a season, that stuff happens. It's a grind. And these kind of slumps are not out of the ordinary for catchers, especially catchers who hit. So let's understand that about Will Smith until he gets moved out of that. And eventually he will. I do think eventually he will at some point. I'm not, whether that's first base and they figure something out with Fred, I don't know, but eventually he's not going to play the next 10 years as their catcher. But while he's going to go through ups and downs this way because it's the nature of the position.
Hey, maybe they'll kick him back to third base again and then let Dalton Rushing come up once he's ready, and then there's your catcher.
There you go.
History Man 0828 says favorite Subway sandwich. I know Subway is not necessarily a popular place, but I do think they deserve credit for having a pretty decent meatball sandwich.
That's the only sandwich I eat there.
There we go. See?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. We'll answer a couple more here. Let me try finding. Well, so I apologize. I can't read this username, but related to kind of the Will Smith stuff, do you think Barnes should be playing more to give Will Smith a bigger break? I feel like Barnes has received more starts than normal than he usually would as the backup, and he is on an 11-game hitting streak, so credit to him for putting that together with limited playing time. But I mean, do you really see much of a chance to increase the playing time for Austin Barnes?
Yeah, I think in September. Yeah, I think so. I think we'll see what the situation is, just standings wise, and how Will Smith feels. But I mean, in all honesty, I would not mind a 2-to-1 ratio for every 2 games that Will Smith catches, Austin Barnes catches 1, just to give him a little break, get him ready for the playoffs. I wouldn't mind that. So yeah, I think there is going to be some opportunities for Barnes to get some more playing time. And I saw a comment in there about, if we had a better backup catcher, Will Smith could rest more. And that's true. That's a hard position to find, really good value at. And Barnes is there for his catching prowess. He's not there to hit. And I think probably once Clayton Kershaw is gone, then you'll probably see Austin Barnes be gone. But for now, yeah, I think that come September, he should be playing a little bit more.
Back to the Subway topic really quick. Blake says their chicken bacon ranch sandwich is, quote, fire. I have had that one as well, and I do like it.
It doesn't surprise me that Blake describes something from Subway as being fire.
Destiny did have a question for us on Twitter.
Good. I was glad you got to this when I saw it. Good.
She apologizes. She says she's new to baseball, so bear with her. She said she went to a game recently. They had Alex Vesia pitching for a little bit. He was so intense with his body. What's with that guy? Is he a good player? She was surprised that Dave Roberts only kept Vesia in for a single inning. Destiny, I'm going to take the question off the screen just so it's not fully blocking my face, because I know Anthony likes to look at me as we're talking to each other.
You're beautiful.
Yes, I have the beard going right now and everything. Vesia. So Vesia is a relief pitcher, so he won't pitch more than one inning very often. Occasionally, he'll go an out or two of a second inning, maybe 2 full innings if they. I don't think they've pushed him like that in a while.
Yeah.
He is certainly very intense, so that was a good read on your part, Destiny. Anthony, is there anything you want to add about Vesia?
Yeah, Destiny, thank you for asking the question. I love when we can get new baseball fans in the door. I don't know how new you are, but relief pitchers take over for the starter, and they tend to not go very long. 1 inning is usually their max. Vesia is a pretty good pitcher for the Dodgers this year. He has been for a little bit now, and he pitches with some fire, as you saw. They got a couple other guys who sort of are that way too, but he's probably the most adamant, I would say, about it. He's fun to watch. When he's bad, he's very frustrating to watch. But yeah, he's definitely got some fire there. You're going to see that a lot come October. You're probably going to see it a little bit more. It's and the reason why some of those relievers just kind of pitch 1 inning is because they're built to throw as hard as they can for the time that they're in there, and then usually they're kind of wiped after that. Whereas a starter, he's expected to go 5 or 6 innings, and so they tend to pace themselves a little bit longer.
Yeah, there you go, Destiny. Hopefully we answered your question well enough. We appreciate you finding us, and we hope that you enjoy baseball, you enjoy our channel. We look forward to answering more questions in the future. Oh, here she's clarifying. She's an Ohtani Angel stan, but he's with the Dodgers now, so she's moved on over.
Well, I apologize for the baseball splaining to you then, Destiny. You probably know what's up already.
But she's saying she didn't know about relief pitchers, so at least we helped her out there. Hey, nonetheless, welcome, Destiny.
Blake says 3 or 4 innings for a Dodger starter. True.
Noisy Ninja says, was Robert pulled because of a possible trade? She's not sure if we talked about it yet. I actually had not seen that Luis Robert was taken out early. I haven't seen anything. I mean, I do have notifications on. I haven't seen anything of a trade like breaking or being on the verge of being completed.
Yeah. So, I didn't see that. I didn't see anything either on that, but I did see something earlier today that said the way things have gone, that person felt like a Robert trade was not likely.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. I mean, I think the White Sox are just also very weird to kind of deal with in that regard. I mean, I know they did end up moving Cease once and for all, but
there's a reason they've had so many good players and have never won anything aside from the Juan Uribe year.
Yeah. Aaron Vaughn, I've seen your question. I'll let the chat answer that one. I know you've tried to bait us into it a couple times.
I saw it too.
We'll just,
you guys are holding your own tonight. I know there's been some trolls in the comments section in the chat. So good job on you guys for playing the bouncer.
Here's some clarification. Blake helping us out. He says that Robert was taken out just for rest because it was a blowout. So no trade. Lends even more credence to Anthony's what he has heard is that just a Luis Robert trade may not be happening. All right, I think we'll end it on that. Laura, here's on a serious note, we should pray for Maximus Freeman. Yes, we mentioned this at the beginning of the show. Freddie Freeman left the team tonight. He was in Houston, ended up flying back to LA before the game started to be with his wife and son Maximus, who was in the hospital earlier this week. Unfortunately, I think he's been sick since the All-Star game is when it happened, and he has some sort of virus that unfortunately is making it either really difficult or impossible for him to like stand and walk. And so that's really unfortunate. And yes, we hope our thoughts are with the Freeman family, and we hope that everything turns out to be okay.
Yeah, stay there as long as you need, Freddie.
Yeah, that is one thing I think Dave said after the game tonight, that he's not going to be back this series, and they're not necessarily sure when he'll return, and it's certainly understandable. So, all right. Well, I think that is a good one to end it on. I want to appreciate everybody who joined us tonight. We did have some Astros fans in here making it interesting throughout the show. We'll be back on the plan for now is Sunday night. So I think we'll be skipping Saturday. Of course, if there's any sort of big breaking news either during the day or at night, then we'll certainly get some people together to do a live show for that and kind of react to whatever may be happening. But also, I don't really anticipate the Dodgers making any sort of trades until Monday at the earliest. The trade deadline, as a reminder, is July 30th at 3 p.m. Pacific. So definitely stay tuned to not only our YouTube channel, our podcast feed, but also DodgerBlue.com and on Twitter, DodgerBlue1958. As soon as something is published with breaking news, we get that shared right away. Once again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. That's Anthony. I'm Matthew, and we'll see you next time.